You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and people who play it. Today is April 29th, 2024, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined today, as always, by my co-host Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Monday?
Spencer, hello. I'm doing well, and man, we have so much to cover this week. We are off and running in season 4.
Yes,
it's
last
great.
week was like a 2-hour plus episode. This week is going to be a long episode.
It's going to be, yeah. I mean, we got a lot to get into, and because there's no guardrails, there's no training wheels, there's no buddy bumpers on season 4. Really, we're just off to the races, and it feels great. I'm having a great time so far. I played so much Dragonflight this week. It was a little absurd, but having a great time. I think. I've heard some gripes around the conversation around WoW that we don't want a season 4, or we want the raid affixes back, from Faded, and Awaken's not different enough or whatever. I think the Faded affixes in raid were kind of a mistake until they layered on 4 of them, and then they just made the fights all about activating the affixes and killing the boss in 90 seconds. So that really I wasn't a huge fan of that, and I think really what we're talking about when we're discussing Season 4 versus no Season 4, as we've known it these last 2 expansions, is it doesn't mean that you're going to get another content tier, It doesn't mean a new raid tier and a new dungeon pool and whatever. It means nothing to do that's new, fresh in any way until expansion. I just don't think they can deliver that much content. So that's really, if you're I don't want season 4, I just want the new stuff, or I want different stuff. Season 4 is just a way to extend the life of the existing content until the expansion's ready to go, I think.
Yeah, back in the day, we'd get a raid, a single boss raid is what we'd end up getting. That was, kill one dragon or kill one demon or kill one whatever, and it was just a single boss raid. And that's all you would get to tide you over for that last period of time. With Season 4, obviously we're getting an entire new season of PvP, an entire new season of Mythic Plus with a new rotation of dungeons. We're getting, obviously the raid revamps with the new tier set revamps. We got a lot with Season 4. I think it's better to do something than to do nothing. When it comes down to a game like World of Warcraft, it is a live service game. It is a game where people have the expectation that we're going to be getting updates and content, and we're not going to sit in a drought for 6 to 8 months. That isn't something that you want anyone to be doing as far as your player base goes. So I'm okay with Season 4. I agree. I'm fine without affixes on raids. They were not my favorite thing at all, doing Faded stuff back in the day. So I am totally okay with them not having those in there. I feel like the raid rotation is a bit weird to me, because the raids are tuned difficult enough that some teams are progressing on the content that they're wanting to get through. Now, they won't be in 6 to 8 weeks, right? They'll be geared enough that they're sort of cranking through the stuff at that point. But the opening weeks are a little rough, and it's that case of, okay, if I only get to see this for a week and then it rotates, and a week and then it rotates, and a week and then it rotates, that's not exactly ideal, because it means anything you were progressing on you don't see again for 3 weeks, which I think is unfortunate. So I feel like the raid rotation isn't something I'm as keen on. I would almost have preferred they just released either one raid for the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and it was something that you could actually progress through and clear through, and then the next raid came out and that one phased out after 4 weeks, and that's what people sort of did. There could be the argument made of, oh, well, that's, someone could be on the last boss in the week 4 and they don't get it, and then that sucks because they don't see it again for 8 weeks or whatever it is. I get that argument, but I think regardless, this content should be tuned for people to clear it quickly. I think Season 4 should literally be the, hey, let's have a good time season. All the content is previous content we've seen. All the content is content that's been cleared. I think it would make sense to go, hey, let's release this stuff. Let's make it something that people can just jam through, get geared up really quickly. Maybe this is the season where people who don't normally PvP get into PvP and try it out for the first time, because they can sort of achieve the goals they want to achieve early on, and while the hype's still going and there's still fun stuff happening, and they still have the motivation to really play the game, we're not 5 or 6 months into it, that they are hopping in and trying something new. And I think that would be a great opportunity for season 4. So I'm hoping we see a lot of that happen. I just, early reports, I agree with you, seeing people go, hey, I don't want a season 4, or hey, I would rather that they had the affixes in and really spice things up inside raids. I feel like season 4 should be the pushover season. I really do. I feel like it should be the let's get overpowered season.
I mean, 2 years ago, that was our big hope for Shadowlands, right? Was that season 4 was going to be this victory lap, and week 1 felt like ass. Like there's just no other way to say it. It just wasn't fun. I do not believe that Dragonflight season 4 has this problem. I had a lot of fun this week. I mean, let's just get into this past week. I mean, it dovetails right into what we're talking about here. Now, originally they said they were going to do like an every other week rotation on the raids to start, and then they immediately backtracked on that.
Yeah.
I am kind of feeling like that's a bit of a mistake, because like our team, we blasted through normal, awakened, Vault of the Incarnates, like no issues at all, and blasted all the way through heroic up until Razageth. And we ended up not being able to down Razageth this week. And part of it was just like a straight up time issue, because like we wanted to start with normal and get our feet wet, remember how all the fights look, get some pieces of gear going, and then get through heroic. And also, there's a lot of stuff on the agenda this week because it is a fresh season. So, last night we picked it up with Heroic Raz. We gave it like an hour. It just wasn't going anywhere. We were getting into phase 2 and second intermission and stuff, but it was just sloppy and it didn't feel good. And there was lower hanging fruit, to be honest. So we backed out. We did Mythic first boss in Vault in 2 polls, which was much simpler than Heroic Raz.
Yeah.
And then we squeezed in Black Temple Time Walking before the end of the week, which, that gives normal quality gear. You can put it in the Catalyst. You also get a chance at some cosmetics and stuff, and it's a very quick and simple run. Your item level gets scaled. People can bring alts, whatever.
Pretty neat to see the catalyzing that stuff, man. That's a great way to start getting some tier stuff for some people early on, too.
Yeah. It's on the champ track. It's just the same as normal gear. So, that I wanted to make sure we got that in, as a team before the end of reset week. So we could have spent another hour on Raz. Maybe we could have killed it by the skin of our teeth, but I think going and doing Mythic first boss and doing Black Temple was just a higher priority. Overall, like I think the raid felt pretty good. It's just, for our team, that's like a huge item level jump to go from what we're used to doing and how far we, I have a lot of the same people as we did Vault with, but some people never did it. And I'm trying to overcome that gap in 1 week is a little much. So I kind of wish we were stepping back into Vault this week to clear back through, but it's going to be Aberrus. And I think it's going to be 2 or 3 rotations, and then it'll just be, you can go do whatever you want.
I imagine so, yeah.
Which is fine, and then it'll be more like, okay, which bosses do we want to make sure we hit this week? We have all the unlocks and stuff, and there's a lot of non-linear.
That's where the skips will come in big too, right? Because you'll have that. You'll have a lot of people going, let's just kill the last 2 in this one. Let's just kill the last 2 in that one. Let's just
right. It's perfect for Vault too, because the stuff people really want is from first boss and then from last 2, and that's exactly how that skip works. So once we're up to speed on that, like it'll be a nice re-clear, and then we can go do something else and just really target drops, which I think is better than just like farming stuff for no reason. I think there's certainly stuff on those bosses people are going to want. So, overall raid was really fun. I was like bracing for the worst, right? I didn't really know what was going to happen when we stepped into heroic, just with tuning changes and everything. But these are like the nerfed versions of these fights too, that are just like scaled up for item level, which, obviously Vault had a lot of nerfs and quality of life updates over the course of its lifespan a couple years ago. So that was cool. And, this week we'll step into Aberrus, probably do the same thing. Start with normal, just get a look at everything, get some gear. We're going to hit a huge power spike on Tuesday as people get their first vaults of the season, get their second bullion, and then pick their first, vendor item and start, upgrading stuff. So it's going to be one of the biggest power spikes I think we've ever seen coming into reset week this week, which is cool. I did I did a ton of keys this week. I don't even know how many keys I did. We're just doing keys like Tuesday night after raid, Wednesday night after raid, Thursday night off night, Friday. I think did I end up doing any on Friday? I can't even remember. I don't think I'm not sure. Saturday afternoon I was doing some. We were doing them last night after raid. I got Conqueror done already. I'm over 1600 rating, and I'm probably going to do some more tonight because I just need to cap out Aspect Crest for the week. The dungeon pool, actually, it feels really good. I mean, I think some of the changes they made to some of the dungeons feel fantastic. Halls of Infusion in particular got some nice changes. Noku Defensive got some nice changes. Just it really makes me appreciate these dungeons and this content, I think, more than I was. I wasn't really looking forward to this season at all, really. Like, okay, we'll just go do this stuff again. I think Vault of the Incarnates is a cooler raid than I really gave it credit for in my head. And these dungeons, I mean, there are some parts that are kind of nasty or that I don't love, but I think these dungeons are really strong and really hold up as keystones. And I mean, there's some adjustments that they're already making, and I'm sure they'll continue to. But also just reworking the difficulty scale and how rewarding it is for your overall like difficulty investment is absurd compared to previous seasons. I mean, if you do +6s, you can get Aspect Crest, so you can get stuff maxed all the way out on the upgrade track. If you do +8s, you can get Myth Track gear out of your weekly vault. And +8s only have 2 affixes, the Fort or Tyrannical, and then just the first affix. So I did all those keys this week. I'm just shy of Aspect Crest capping. I have 2 Mythic Vault choices loaded up for tomorrow, and I have not done any keys that have 3 affixes because you just don't have to. So that's huge. And also they upped the Aspect Crest cap to 120 up from 90, so you can get like 2 full upgrades a week. Just really accelerating all that. I have a lot of good stuff to say. I had really a great time in Keystone Dungeons this week. For a long time, people have been banging the drum for we don't want affixes. We just want the dungeon to be the dungeon. And I don't know how much I agree with that really, but they're moving a lot more in that direction with this season. So yeah, that was really good. Looking forward to seeing what a Fort week feels like. Starting off with the Tyrannical week was a little gnarly in some places, especially early on, but we'll get our first Fort week coming up this week, so that should feel pretty good. Man, I was doing time walking and LFR on my alts because time walking super lucrative, right? You get the stamp track, like normal mode equivalent piece. I got a Farrak weapon on my monk out of my time walking box.
Wow.
So yeah, that was nice. And LFR, man, like you get bullion from doing LFR, from killing LFR bosses. So I took my monk in and I did 1 boss and I got a bullion. And I'm like, sweet, I guess I'll do 1 more boss and I'll have a vault choice and I'm out of here. And so then, I'll do the same thing this week coming up. I'll get some cool piece of loot for my monk, and that feels awesome to be able to do that with like relatively low investment and just target the exact pieces that you want from the raid, loot table. Incredible. Like I haven't done that in forever, man. Like I would never think of doing that. Most of this expansion, most of Shadowlands, like because it just wasn't rewarding enough. And it's like, what's the end goal here? I'm just fishing for something that I'm probably never going to get. I'm not putting in enough time to really gear this character up, but you could do that with the bullion system in this season. And beyond that, I was doing some time walking just to level up the hunter a bit. I got to like level 64, but I didn't have much more time for it because I was just slamming keystones whenever I had time this week, basically. I didn't even play War Within Alpha. We got a new build. We got a new zone to go do. You can play as Earthen now. It all looks really cool, but Season 4 Week 1, man. Everybody that I like to play with was just hitting up the Discord channels all week like, I need a tank for keys. Let's do keys. And it's like, I'm not going to say no. If I wasn't having fun with that, then I wouldn't do it. But, it was just Season 4 time. So a lot of stuff on my plate. I wish I could have stepped into Alpha this week, but I only have so much time in my life. But
There's always this coming week, man. There's always more time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we'll certainly be spending time in the Ringing Deeps soon enough. Overall, I mean, I think Season 4 has exceeded my expectations by a large margin so far. I'm having a great time with it, and can't wait to get back in there tonight, get some more keys down, hopefully, and Step back into Aberrus for the first time in a while tomorrow. It's really cool. It's very invigorating. It feels a lot better than I thought it was going to.
I'm really glad to hear that. No, I definitely feel like they have hit the mark with catch-up, having things like the LFR to get Boolean, things like that, because the important thing to me for Season 4 is, hey, if you're coming back to the game and you want to check out what's been going on in the game before War Within launches, because that's really what you're sort of getting prepped for, you need to be able to feel as though you can catch up to everybody else in at least a reasonable amount of time, and at least, you know, everyone else being the majority of players, which is that like normal geared kind of level, normal raid geared kind of level for a lot of people. You know, some heroic pieces, that kind of thing is where I think a lot of players kind of sit. And so I feel like they have a lot of systems in place right now that really help players catch up, which is great. So that's a big part of this. So I'm thrilled to hear you're having a good time with it. We did raid last week in Season of Discovery. We actually one night cleared, which felt really good. It did take, you know, close to 2 hours or just over 2 hours to sort of get through and do it. So I'm hoping we can trim that down a little bit, but otherwise it was very satisfying to sort of get in there and crank through the place. And they've done a lot of tuning and fixes and whatnot to not just the raid, but to classes to sort of help that along. And I think they're starting to hit the mark where I think they should be hitting with this stuff. Which is good. There's still a couple bosses where I'm like, it's a little weird that and this is like back to N'Zoth when I was raiding way back when in Battle for Azeroth, where it's like, it's odd that there's a mechanic where the best way to handle it is just to have someone sacrifice themselves. That's always a strange mechanic to have inside of a game like World of Warcraft. But yeah, there's at least one boss where just sacrificing healers seems to be like, this is the most efficient way to do this fight. You're like, oh, well, okay, strange. All right, I'll just die then. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so I feel like things like that could probably get tweaked a little bit to sort of help have a more solidified strategy. We did handle it better. We lost fewer healers this week than we normally do on that fight, but it is something where I think that could probably get adjusted a bit. All right, let's hop into what's going on this week, because there's still a lot to talk about going on there. All right, this week in World of Warcraft is the Battleground bonus event, meaning the Sign of Battle buff is up, increasing honor gains from Battleground objectives and wins by 50%. And there's a quest to complete 4 of them, which gets you some marks of honor and conquest. As far as the actual weekly stuff goes, the Last Hurrah is happening right now, which is Season 2 week, where basically researchers under fire, loot a secured shipment, and complete a time rift is currently the stuff that you can go and do. I guess they're really changing up what this weekly stuff looks like, Jason. They're adding in a spin to it to try and get people encouraged based off of what raid's functional.
Yeah. I assume that once there's no more rotation that you'll be able to pick whatever you want, but for now it's tied into whatever the awakened raid is for the week. I assume that this coming week, I mean, it's Monday, so we don't know for sure yet. We know it's going to be Season 2 week, Aberrus week, whatever. Yeah. On PTR, you know, the last hurrah for that week was complete researchers under fire, loot a secured shipment from the Barak incursion, a fusion camp. What a fun feature that was, and do a time rift. So maybe there's some variance here or some rotation to it, but probably not. I think it's probably just this every time there's a Aberrus week. This is sort of a double-edged sword, I think. Like this past week, we had this for Vault of the Incarnates, and last hurrah was participate in a community feast, participate in Siege on Dragonbane Keep, and participate in a Grand Hunt. And 2 of those events are on pretty strict timers and are sort of designed around people queuing up, waiting for them to happen. Not like in an actual queue in the UI, but just like standing around waiting for the event to start to reach like a critical mass of people to do it. This one is sort of the same thing. I mean, researchers under fire is on a timer, time rifts are on a timer. The fusion camps are kind of always around, at least. So this is okay. I think it's an okay change. It really highlights, you know, the different content that came in each season, which is neat. It's a way to highlight that stuff, because otherwise nobody would ever do it. Also, the gear is pretty decent from this. Like, you get, from participating in these events, you get a cache that contains a item level 480 item, and then you also get additional gear from completing Last Hurrah. So it's it's a pretty good way to get started on a low gear character. The problem is you have to watch the clock. Is it the top of the hour? Okay, I'm going to go do a time rift. Oh, when's the next Researchers Under Fire start? Okay, I got to remember to be there for that. The good thing is you don't have an associated like rep grind. It doesn't matter how much rep you get in the process of your week. You just do these 3 events and you get your cash, and the cash is pretty rewarding. So it's worth doing. I'll tell you what, I don't think I'm ever going to pick this one. Once we can pick whichever one we want, I really don't like Suffusion camps. The other 2 are okay, but I would I think the Vault of the Incarnates week is actually pretty good, even though you have conflicts where a Community Feast and Dragonbane Keep are happening at the same time, and then you're like waiting an hour for the next Dragonbane Keep or whatever to come around. But I ended up doing Last Hurrah on 3 of my tunes last week, or this current week that is ending today. So it felt like that's the kind of thing I would never do with the 3,000 rep grind and just all the the rewards weren't really appealing enough, I guess, to make me want to spend that much time running around just farming rep up to get that bar filled to turn the quest in. This is actually much more time efficient, I feel like, to do on multiple characters. You just have your schedule blocked out because of the public events, but overall, like, especially if you're trying to gear up for season 4, this should definitely be on your radar, because they just dump like 480s on your head to get started, and you can upgrade them and stuff, obviously, but yeah, it's they made it really lucrative.
It's important that it's lucrative. It's also important to sort of highlight these events and why they were tied, like what season they're sort of tied to, simply because, again, players who are returning and coming back sort of want to know what this, like, get that spice of what this expansion was all about. And so by saying, hey, here's the events that took place during this era of the game, that is a way of directing people towards those things. But you have to make it worthwhile doing for those players, because, yeah, like you said, some of them involve a lot of waiting around or just aren't very enjoyable experiences. So it's got to be something that adds that spice, but is also a little rewarding, right? You can't just be all fire. So anyways, the Packed House is the PvP brawl going on. That is where we basically have arenas, except inside the arenas, as opposed to being 2 or 3 or not even 5v5, it's 15 versus 15 adversaries, which means that you basically just have 15 people fighting 15 people inside an arena setting, and it's really crazy and hectic, and it all ends very quickly. So if you're someone who just wants to get in and get your brawl done, you can probably knock this out in 2 or 3 brawls, and it will happen. You could do 2 or 3 brawls in like 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is for you getting through. The fight itself tends to not last as long as the 1-minute countdown timer for the fight to start. Just keep that in mind. It is absolutely hectic as all get out. So it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's silly, and it's quick, and that's what's important. So good brawl.
Yeah, not a lot of technique here, right? It's just absurd. There's not supposed to be 30 players in these instances, so just go have fun with it. Yeah, it's like a coin flip, usually winning or losing. So do your best. It's quick games, just total chaos. It's pretty fun. Yeah. I think like when it comes to, we're going to take a PvP experience that and flip the rules around. This is like maybe the best one of those. It's so wacky, like just watching 15 people explode as soon as the match starts.
Yeah. All right, world bosses this week. You've got Orstar the Hibernator, you got yourself the Zakali Elders, and of course we have Baziricon, the Shale Wing. Be sure you're knocking out the world boss associated with the content that we're currently doing, because it will get buffed up as far as loot goes, so it's certainly worth knocking those out. So
yeah, make sure to do Zakali Elders this week. That's your target. And I believe the way it works is they drop like gear that's like halfway up the champion track. I didn't get a drop from Vault World Boss on any of my tunes this week that I did it on. But one thing that's cool though, you do get a cash from killing the Awakened World Boss that does have like a 480 item in it. So even if you don't high roll a piece of gear, you walk away with something from doing the world boss, or at least that was my experience this week. Maybe that's going to vary week to week. We'll see. But that was nice. That was a nice consolation prize. Like, okay, at least I got something for coming out here and doing this. It's sub 13 or 16 or whatever item levels from what it could be, but at least it's something I can walk away with. And I mean, my alts, I let them rot throughout season 3. They're like 414 item level or something, just super behind the curve at this point. So being able to do this low impact stuff that I could basically do solo and just at least get a foot in the door with Season 4 is really great. So make sure if you have alts that you're interested in gearing up, you're doing Zakali Elders this coming week for sure. You'll get something. Even if it's not what you really wanted, you'll get something.
Again, Season 4 is the season where they should just be dumping loot on people's heads, so I'm glad to hear that that's going on for sure. Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Fortified, Entangling, and Bolstering, meaning that we have non-boss enemies are basically just dealing more damage and having more health, as well as entangling vines appear and snare players, and you have to run away from the vines in order to snap them, break them, or use some sort of CC removal on yourself. And bolstering means that when any non-boss enemy dies, its death cry empowers its nearby allies, increasing their damage done by 20%. So, man, this is actually a slog of a trash week, but I think it will probably be a decent fortified week. Not a lot of these are super dangerous. Fortified entangling isn't super dangerous. Yes, entangling will stun you if you do not break your snare with either a racial or, movement speed and running away and breaking it, or a shapeshift, or a hand of freedom. Any of those things can get rid of entangling and sort of help players out that way. Bolstering and fortified can be dangerous in the sense of, yes, because trash already has increased damage for the week and it's alive longer because it has increased health for the week. Bolstering means that if you kill something, you have to deal with the rest of the trash at 20% increased damage, or 40% or 60%, depending on how many ads died, for a longer period of time. And they're also hitting 30% harder on top of that additional increase that they're hitting. So yes, bolstering can be dangerous when mixed with fortified, but in general, I don't feel like this changes a lot of people's routes that they're sort of doing through dungeons. It doesn't necessarily put people in a situation where they're like, oh god, don't AoE. Well, you should AoE, because bolstering is great when you kill everything at the same time. That's a fantastic thing for dealing with bolstering. So I just generally feel like this is a fairly forgiving fortified week when it comes to affixes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's bad at all. Granted, I mean, we haven't seen a fortified week yet this season, and we're still pretty low gear, so it's, there's still like a feeling out process with the overall Mythic Plus landscape right now. But the thing is, like, a lot of people are not even going to run into any bolstering keys.
I know, right? It's
I
might end up key now, yeah.
I might end up doing some, maybe not. I don't know where I'm going to land, because right now the most important thing to me is getting +8s done for Vault and doing 6+ for aspect crests, and nothing else really matters all that much. I don't need any teleports or anything, and that stuff, I think once we get really optimized in our loadouts from stuff we can buy and upgrade, that we're going to start blowing up this content. So yeah. I'm still kind of readjusting to the overall picture for Mythic Plus, because like I said, I didn't do any 3 affix dungeons all week, and I did so many dungeons. I mean, overall, the nice thing about this combo is there's nothing super comp dependent. Like, yes, if you have like a paladin, for example, and you can dish out 2 hands of freedom at the same time, then that's really good against entangling. But entangling is not super difficult to play around to begin with.
Right.
If you are stepping into bolstering, this early in the process, you are going to be kind of low gear compared to where we're going to end up. And so fort bolstering could be a little gnarly, because it might already be pretty heavy duty to begin with. Fort mobs up that high, especially certain packs where you have casters or whatever. But like, in my case, I'm just kind of taking it slow in terms of going up the ladder. And it's like, I just want to get all my dungeons up so my rating goes up, so we get closer to that 2,500. And other than that, I can get everything I need just from doing whatever, right? Almost all the stuff I want comes out of the bullion vendor in terms of jewelry and trinkets and all that, weapons, a shield. So all I really need is, then I get 2 crafted pieces. I don't need any luck at all really with dungeon drops, and I just need to pull myth track stuff out of the vault to convert into set. So it's such a clear gearing path that really, for me, it's just about like, okay, what's the most efficient way to cover my bases this week, almost, Some of my friends and people that I'm playing with, like, don't have teleports for these dungeons, so I want to make sure everybody gets them, and I'm certainly happy to help people work our way up the chain to 10s and all that. I don't think I've ever had a week of, like, a first week of the season where I was doing, the equivalent of, like, 18s, let's say, and just, not really thinking about it too hard. I mean, 8s were pretty hard for us this week, but I did get at least one in time. Normally the seasons start a lot slower for me, so I think it's going to work out just fine. But this week, this week might be the first week a lot of us step into 9s, 10s, and stuff that has 3 affixes. So we'll see overall how it feels, but yeah, I don't know. You got to pay attention to the bolster buff, but I think overall it's going to be a pretty good week.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great week for Mythic Plus. All right, Children's Week is currently happening. It's live through May 8th. This means that you can go and visit the Orphan Matron to start the quest lines. This is obviously the different matrons in all the major cities. So you have the Stormwind, Orgrimmar, Shatrath, Northrend, Borealis, and Dazar'alor as different matrons you can go and visit. And basically you get up to 14 different unique pets based off of what you're choosing as far as your pet goes for completing the storylines. Each of those different matrons you can go and visit has a different sort of storyline that you act out and choose a pet from. So the Stormwind and Orgrimmar one, you got Whiskers the Rat, Speedy, Scooter the Snail, and Mr. Wiggles. In Shatrath, you have Egbert, Peanut, Willy, and Legs. In Dalaran, you have the Curious Oracle Hatchling and the Curious Wolvar Pup. In BFA, you have Mr. Krabs, Beakbert, Froglet, and Scaly. So you can choose from any of those, but you cannot collect all 10 pets on one character. However, if you complete the quest lines on multiple characters, you can get them all in 1 year. So if you have a bunch of characters that are out there, obviously this isn't a very high level requirement to participate in this since it's BFA. Is sort of like the farthest along that this has progressed. So you should be able to actually get all 10 pets if you're really looking to do that and collect them all. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the quest lines are particularly difficult to complete or anything. So if you're missing any of these, you can get in there and do it kind of however you want to. The stuff they did in BFA, I think, was really great. I highly recommend those. If you missed them, if you never went and did them, you should check them out this week because I think they were really well done and just fun, and the rewards are great. So, yeah. You also have the meta achievement stuff or the involved for the holiday that counts towards Long Strange Trip if you still want to do that. And I think they made that easier, right? Because they took out the part about having to take your orphan into a battleground.
Yeah,
so that
it's
was
no longer there. Everyone complained. It was like, why am I bringing my orphan into this violent war zone? And you're like, oh, right, that's probably a good call. We should take that one out. Yeah,
these kids are learning to grow up on Azeroth, so
it's true.
It might be necessary.
It seems a little harsh for like a 6-year-old,
yeah, maybe,
right?
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not for the grade schoolers. Yeah. But yeah, so there is a bunch of that kind of stuff associated with it too. But the main bend is the quest lines, and yeah, I can't recommend the BFA refresh on that enough. I think they were really great. So yeah, check them out if you get a chance. It's busy times. Your WoW time is very contested right now. I get it, but if you have a chance, you should check it out if you never did it.
Yeah. All right. Northrend Cup is also currently live through May 14th. So if you're someone who hasn't hopped out there to Northrend to do your normal, advanced, and reverse variations to get your Riders of Azeroth badges and rewards from Matza in Valdrakken, then be sure you get out there to complete all the Northrend Cups on gold, and you can earn the achievement for Northrend Racing Completionist Gold, as well as the Northrend Racer title, and Ruby Riders of Azeroth Tabard. So if you want any of those things, you can get out there and do that, and there's new rewards along the lines of the Icy Drake Racers Transmog set, as well as the Checkered Pendant. Have you gotten your Checkered Pendant yet, Jason?
I don't. So I think that's brand new for Northrend. So, yeah, pretty cool. I assume it's like one of the flag toys that sticks out of your back. Yep. I just haven't seen it yet. Yeah, it's definitely on my radar. I gotta try to get this done as soon as I can. Because there's just so mumuch stuff to do.
It's easy to lose track.
Yeah, I don't want to miss out on it. I got all this stuff from all the previous cups, and I haven't had any time to play yet today, so I haven't seen this yet. But I've had a lot of fun with the old continent Dragon Race cups and stuff, and I'm sure one or two of these are just going to be completely, frustration inducing, and they're just tuned like 1 second too tight for some reason that no one can explain. But that's all part of the process. So I think this has been a cool event in Dragonflight. I'm definitely I got to knock this all out before Pandaria Remix comes out. That's the big thing. So, well, I guess it ends before that starts, but still, I this got to be off my radar. I got to shift modes from this on to the next thing.
Yeah. All right. As far as hotfixes go for Live WoW, they fixed a bug with damage dealt by rip and tear, the internal combustion and tear open wounds in Awakened raids. So all of those abilities for classes weren't working properly, so they fixed a bug with that. As far
I
as
think they were not doing enough damage, so that's a bug that you wanted fixed. I don't think it was one of those ones where it's doing too much.
Yeah.
You don't want them to fix those.
They have changed the raid finder requirement to item level 463 for participating in the Awakened raids, so that allows a little bit more people to access stuff, which is good to see that happening. Brackenhide Hollow, they addressed an issue where Stink Breath can turn while casting Stink Breath, as well as they addressed an issue where the Wilted Oak's Necrotic Breath visual can be out of sync with the direction the creature's facing. Yeah, that's a really bad one. That's one of the ones that I dislike a lot, is when you're like, oh, hey, why am I dead? Oh, well, because the boss was facing your direction 3 seconds ago and then faced this other direction for a while and you thought you were safe, but you weren't. The breath still casted where they were facing previously. So good to see that change come in.
One of the big changes was in this place was that Stink Breath was supposed to be, you were supposed to have more of an opportunity to get out of Stink Breath.
Yep.
The cast of Stink Breath. It worked. It seems to work fine now, but I guess it wasn't there at first. I didn't do this before the fix came in. And the Wilted Oaks, I'm pretty sure that Necrotic Breath used to be interruptible, and it is now not. So it is now this cone that you have to dodge, and if you can't tell where it actually is, that could be pretty bad. So,
yep.
I mean, I haven't had any issues with this, but again, I don't know if I got to Brackenhide before these changes came in, but it is kind of funny that Stink Breath just wasn't behaving out of the gate. Like they tried to make Stink Breath behave, but Stink Breath didn't want to behave.
It's true. All right, items from Season 3. The Dreaming Crests are now correctly removed from players' currency tabs. Players have received a small amount of gold compensation for their unused Dreaming Crests, so just keep that in mind. Players can now earn up to 120 crests of each type per week in Dragonflight Season 4. That's up from the 90 maximum at the end of end of Season 3. So this will allow for up to 8 upgrades per week per crest type. It was 6 previously in Season 3. So they've sort of bumped this all up to allow more people to catch up faster, which I think is great. They expect the weekly maximum to return to 90 for the War Within Season 1, so just keep that in mind. We will be rolling back once we get out of Season 4, so that is an expectation they are setting for players now, so that in whatever that is, 5-6 months, they're not like, what do you mean it's going back to 90? You're like, no, we said that ages ago, so keep that in mind.
I like it. I mean, Season 4 is supposed to be the fast track. It's supposed to be the victory lap, right? This is what we want. I saw also some grousing about caps existing, and I get that, but I think they're actually good at the outset of a season. I don't want them to hang out too long. I'd like the cap to be gone in 4 to 6 weeks. But I think you want to have caps early on because not everybody is going to sit there and slam as many keys as they possibly can. The people that can do that will get such an advantage in this system because they'll be able to upgrade stuff so much, so frequently, get a bunch of crafted items, whatever. You want to keep players within like a reasonable power band to start new content, I think. You want to direct people's time into certain activities and then reward them for up to a certain amount of time that they're spending in it, and then reset that, And after a few weeks, it doesn't really matter because the people that are going to be way ahead have now kind of established that. The people that aren't going to be capping and doing that, they're already not doing that. So then it kind of works out. But for the first few weeks, I think it really is beneficial to keeping people within, sort of a more narrow power band, for, just for setting up pugs and stuff like that. Obviously, that's a huge part of how people interface with the game. And it's like, well, if you didn't have time to get, 360 aspect crest week 1, like you're just going to be behind the item level curve forever. Right. So forget about pugging or something. Like that's not good either. So there's a balance there. The higher cap is like a little intimidating to hit. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hit it every week, but I'm gonna try for now. But it's really cool to be able to get that many upgrades through. That's like 8 upgrades is 2 myth 2 out of 4s all the way up or whatever. So that'll be really nice once we're sort of over this first week hump. Once we get our big spike this week and really start busting this stuff out, you're gonna have a lot of flexibility with your crest. So I love it. It's just you know, before long, I'm sure they'll remove the cap and then it'll be off to the races. But usually by the time they do that, it's like, what do I even really need crests for now? You know?
Yeah. All right. Veteran track items obtained from awakened outdoor activities should now be properly able to be converted to class items in the revival catalyst. So you got to catalyze those things. The resolved an issue with Season 4 tier items not functioning after equipping certain Tier 3 set items. That's a big problem. But you know why people are still equipping certain Tier 3 set items? Because they're better than the Season 4s with bonuses. This includes Boomkins. Boomkins right now wearing 2-piece Season 3 and 2-piece Season 4 is actually better than wearing 4-piece Season 4. So there is some tuning that needs to happen to these sets at the moment, because otherwise you are going to see some really weird stuff happen where people are doing this stuff a lot, where they're, well, I'm going to put on my old tier sets that are massively under item leveled from the current content because they're better. So I'd like to see some adjustments, to say the least, to be able to buff some of these things up so people aren't doing that very often. All right, Dreambound gear caches from the Dream Surge Coalesce vendor will now correctly award Season 4 Explorer 1 of 8, which is item level 454, and tokens will properly display the correct item level of its content. They also fixed an issue with the...
one really cool note on that is this is retroactive. I had a bunch of these caches and like items that were just out there on alts that I never leveled or never used the tokens because I wasn't ready to play them or whatever, and they just all converted to 454.
Awesome.
So that's really cool because I spent a fair bit of time doing dream surges and stuff at the time, and I had a bunch of stuff to spread around. So, you know, I logged in. I said I was playing my hunter and leveling him up a bit. I got to like level 64 this week, and all the male pieces of dream surge gear he had are now 454, just waiting for him. So once he's capped out, it's like, okay, I have a nice leg up to get into the 480s and stuff like that from the public events without being, you know, 70 levels under geared or more. That's a nice little feature, and I'm sure we'll have to do Dream Surge stuff at some point for a last hurrah or whatever. So that's more opportunities to get these pieces.
Yeah. They also fixed an issue preventing Season 4 crests from properly converting to their lower tier currency, so that is resolved as well. All right, as far as blue posts go for live game stuff, the Splintered Spark of Awakening, there was a post here from Kaivax saying, just wanted to share some details. Everyone essentially started Season 4 in catch-up mode. Players were able to get one Splintered Spark of Awakening from the weekly quest, whether that's the weekly Last Hurrah quest or the PvP weeklies offered by the it's not militia. Malicia? Is this what this thing is? I don't know what the word is.
I've never heard it. It could be militia, maybe. I mean, if you're like a PvP gladiator, you might be malicious. So maybe. I
don't know. Anyways, and then you're able to get another splinter / half spark from any valid catch-up source, such as Mythic Plus Awakened raids and PvP wins. Next week and thereafter, only one spark will be obtainable every week, and like Season 2 and 3, with the increasing cap on splintered sparks per week, and if you ever fall behind, you will be able to get splintered sparks from any catch-up source. So, yeah, splinter sparks are going to work essentially like a lot of the currencies we've seen in this expansion, where, hey, if you happen to skip a few weeks, you can just get a few that week, which is nice. That's what we want to see as far as those currencies go. So, glad to see that.
Yeah, it's a little weird coming in where you get one the first week, but then I don't know. This was a bit confusing because at first it was like,
sure.
Oh, sweet, we're just gonna get one every week, which I think would have been nice. But no, instead it's every other. I mean, you're still probably gonna want some crafted gear this week, or you know, this season. I mean, but I did make I upgraded a piece week 1. I'll upgrade my cloak probably when I get my next spark, and then. You know, at that point, I'll probably fill in if I'm not having luck on a certain slot or whatever. If I just need an item level boost, then it'll fill in. But I don't think gearing is going to be, so rigid this season. Last season, it was like I sort of had the schedule mapped out for where my sparks were all going, and I was going to make this slot, then this slot, then that slot. Now it's more like, okay, I'm just going to buy this piece off of the vendor, and then, I'm going to upgrade that. And then all these sources are all locked in already. So really, I just need my crafting gear for my embellishments. And once they're situated, then if I'm sitting on a spark and I'm sitting on a bunch of crests that I don't need anything for, and I could squeeze out some item level here and there, then maybe it's worth it. Whereas in Season 3, it was, it was very rigid.
Yeah. The account character limit has been increased for the live game. They're increasing it up to 65 characters per account. I feel a little bit like this is probably anticipation for the Mists of Pandaria event that's going to be coming out, where a lot of people are going to want to start new characters, and those characters are going to move over to your live account once Pandaria event has completed. So this is probably to make a little bit more room for people to have a few characters going for the Pandaria event. I know I'm actually looking forward to doing some Heritage Armor stuff I have not gotten done yet, just through the Pandaria event, where it's going to be a massively accelerated rate, and once the event has essentially ended and the characters move back over to your account, you'll be able to collect those Heritage Armors, which is pretty exciting as well. So we'll cover a little bit more about that in a PTR patch note that we're going to talk about in a second. But before we do, let's talk some Time Walking cache that was bugged. Earlier this week, we rolled out a fix for players who opened up their Time Walking dungeon and raid cache before 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. Affected players have received an in-game mail with the appropriate cache replacement. Players who open their cache after 2:30 p.m. Pacific time today should find that they received the intended rewards. So yes, caches were not functioning the way that they were supposed to be functioning, and people got everything all replaced and fixed up and rolled over, and it's normal patch day expectation things.
Yeah, there was a lot of really weird stuff, like right when servers came up with rewards being wrong, catalyst stuff being wrong, interactions with different pieces of gear being wrong, and a bunch of people in guild like hopped in and immediately started just bashing through Time Walking dungeons to get their cache, and then they opened it up and they got, you know, season 3 loot that wasn't even appropriate for the loot spec or maybe even their class. So that was kind of a bummer, but I mean, it did fix it. So if you were affected, you should have gotten a replacement in the mail, which is good because that's what they should do. I don't know how stuff like this ends up going out, but I mean, there's so many moving pieces. It's like, who knows? There's like some extra switch to flip for the Time Walking reward cache or something that didn't get flipped. So, yeah, it was. I didn't have any issues with this, but I didn't do it right away, so it definitely got fixed. It's fine now, and I mean, we are coming up on the end of the Time Walking week here in the next few hours as we record. But yeah, Time Walking. These caches are like so good at the beginning of the season, and especially as we move into season 4, I think it's worth doing on any character you really invested in playing.
Right.
But yeah, that was a bit of a mess there on Tuesday last week.
Yeah, exactly. All right, the WoW Companion app is being retired. It's going to be going away. So with the release of the War Within pre-expansion content updates, so it's the pre-X pack, was it 11.0? Is that what we're looking at here? I think it's 11.0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be the 11.0 launch.
Will no longer support the WoW Companion app. After this date, players will not be able to update, download, or use the Companion app and its features. I want to thank everyone who supported this app as their companion for their adventures over the years. Yes, without having like a mission table for the past couple expansions, I feel like this is just a clear, all right, we're not doing a whole lot with this anymore. This isn't really all that helpful. We now have the Battle.net app for people who want to actually chat with their guildies and whatnot. They can do that, so this app isn't really doing a whole lot anymore. So they're moving it on, they're getting rid of it, and it probably also honestly is a, hey, you know what, hopefully this doesn't mean they're laying off a chunk of their people who worked on the companion app.
Yeah, hopefully not, right? Yeah, I think Warbands was probably really the final nail in the coffin for this, because one of the main benefits of the companion app was, I mean, mission tables, like you said, and just being able to kind of manage multiple characters or whatever. You're going to have a lot less of that, I think, post Warbands. It also might make it just harder for the app to function in any kind of logical way. I guess this means that the mobile auction house is dying yet another death, which is kind of funny. I wonder if they end up bringing it back standalone in some fashion or what. I don't know if people are really using it a lot still, but that's the only real feature I can think of here that is, potentially going to impact anybody, especially going forward. So there you have it. I mean, we first got it back when Legion came out, right? It was that was the first time they because we had there was a WoW mobile app, but there wasn't really much to it, and then they rebranded it as the companion, and you could manage your your stuff with it, your follower missions, and you could see world quests and everything. It was cute, but really, I mean, the overall, it wasn't super useful, and Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if we'll see the auction house come back yet again somehow. But I mean, I think also doing stuff like putting an auction house in the new capital city when an expansion comes out sort of removes some of that need. Even, I mean, I know there's people who like to sit there and play the auction house all day, but if if you're in a wider kind of group of players who I just need to get my raid consumables off the auction house before I go to raid, and going to Stormwind is such a pain, it costs me so much time. If you can just go to the auction house in the city that you're already in and then go to raid, like that probably is better. It's not like, oh, let me buy my flasks from the office before I drive home and log in, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we'll live without it, I guess is what I'm saying. We've been used to not having it enough over the years anyway.
Yeah. I think it'll do fine. Okay, we're going to take a step into the other realms of World of Warcraft now. We're stepping away from the Dragonflight live game. We are moving into the hotfixes for Cataclysm Classic, was what we'll start off with, where the dates for Children's Week have been adjusted so that the holiday begins and ends 3 days later than previously scheduled. So just keep that in mind with Cataclysm Classic. The Season of Discovery notes that are kicking off. So as far as Season of Discovery goes, players who have completed the quest warranty claim but have misplaced their pristine G7 core processor before handing in the quest's salvage-matics may now speak with the lost and found vendor, Rick's Ziz's, in Booty Bay to recover the misplaced quest items. So yeah, if you're someone who's trying to lose quest items, it looks like they're trying to put in vendors to kind of help players who are like, oh, I sold or destroyed that. It's gone now. Oops. What do I do? Well, now they have a lost and found vendor, which I think is a great option for you to just go to and talk to and get your stuff. They also fixed a sunken temple issue where a Tali Defender's encounter would not end or would not reset properly. Yeah, it really sucks in Classic when encounters don't reset properly because people are just kind of stuck because you can't zone into the instance while there's a fight in progress. So you literally become stuck, which is really unfortunate. Using a unconscious dig rat no longer dismisses pets. I don't know what an unconscious dig rat is. I have not experienced this inside Classic, but I think it's funny that it dismissed your pet at the time, and that was a frustrating thing for players. Druids got themselves some hotfixes. This was actually a very nice thing. This actually made me go back and change my build, which is a very strange thing to do inside Classic because I haven't done it very often because they have dual spec. So you basically, like, when I'm doing Boomy, I just have my other Boomy spec, and when I'm doing my Resto stuff, I have my Resto spec, and I switch back and forth between them the same way you would, well, you used to do on live game. Now it's a little different on live game. But yes, so natural weapons talents now increases all damage done by druids in Season of Discovery, not just physical damage. So if you're someone who's doing resto stuff, it was actually worth tweaking some things around to get 10% more damage on your wraths that you're casting for free with your runes. So that was really nice. My favorite change is that Swift Mend, which is a rune that you can get, no longer consumes rejuve or regrowth effects on the target. Please note that it does not still require rejuve or regrowth to be on the target to be used. So you do still have to have a rejuve or a regrowth on the target. However, it now no longer consumes it. And the reason why I love this is because the other Resto Druid in my raid would always use Swift Mend on my rejuves and would essentially eat my rejuves off of targets, which sucked because I would cast a full cost, like rank 8 or whatever it is, rejuve, and he would just eat it instantly. And I was like, well, that sucks because the ideal thing to do for Resto Druids is for you to cast a low rank, because down ranking is amazing, like rank 1 rejuve, and turn that into a Swift Mend because it doesn't affect the amount of healing Swift Mend does. So it's substantially cheaper to sort of get that cast off. And so that person no longer sniping me was a really nice thing to sort of, deal with this week. So I was very happy about that. It was great. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Very nice change.
Yeah. A little quality of life and peace of mind. Hunters got themselves some big buffs, so if you're playing a hunter, definitely be sure you check some things out. I know that a lot of things got shuffled around for you, and you're doing a lot more damage as a ranged hunter than you were previously. Melee hunter is still like the best DPS spec in the game, just raptor striking over and over again, so that's still a thing, but there's too many melee. We need more ranged, so I'm glad they're buffing up ranged hunters to give them a bit more of a playstyle change. I think they can enjoy that a little bit more. For mages, displacement no longer functions if the most recent use of Blink was on a different continent or different instance. I don't know why displacement was being really weird and breaking things, but it's no longer breaking things, and that's important for players. Seal of the Righteousness can now crit for paladins, as well as Sacred Shield's duration has been extended to 60 seconds up from 30, and Crusader Strike has now gained an additional effect. Crusader Strike now refreshes all judgment effects active on the target to a 30-second remaining duration. That's huge, as well as Seal of the Martyr can now twist, and other seals, including Seal of Command. So what they mean by this is seal twisting was an interesting emergent effect that became popular during the original Burning Crusade that utilized the slower server messaging system used in early versions of WoW to slightly extend the duration of the Paladin's active seals for a short time whenever a second seal was cast. This effect allowed Paladins to momentarily gain the benefit of 2 seals at once if they timed the application of new seal lineup perfectly just for their 1 weapon swing. All right, I gotta do an aside here. This is how ridiculous World of Warcraft players are. Someone figured out that they could get the timing just right and have a moment of double seals up on a target. It was known enough that the devs found out about it. It became a play style, and it became the meta for what you're supposed to do. So they recreated this play style in Burning Crusade Classic, and since then, it's been a popular request in other versions of WoW, including Season of Discovery. As the game matures and we continue to listen to player feedback, however, we recognize that that for some, this is part of the charm and uniqueness of playing Paladin during those early eras of WoW. We consider this change to be experimental, and we will watch the performance and behavior of Retribution closely after this change. So my issue with these sorts of things when they leave them in like this is it's a strong, very large differentiator of those who even know this exists than those who don't. And if it's too large of a differentiator between the two, and it's not something that the game uniquely sort of directs you somehow, that this is how your class is behaving when you're playing it properly, that's a struggle. So I go back and forth about things like this. In one part, I'm like, hey, this is like casting Nature's Swiftness before casting Convoke back in Shadowland stuff, where essentially if you cast Nature's Swiftness before casting Convoke, Nature's Swiftness would empower every regrowth that was cast during your Convoke, as opposed to just one regrowth. It would empower all of them that were cast during it, which was crazy and a huge increase, and something that not the average player would think of. And it was actually one of those secrets that we tried to spread around as much as possible, but not everyone knew about. And so you're like, okay, should that get fixed by the devs so it's not a thing, so the rotation's simpler and easier to understand for players? Or do we keep that sort of complexity in because that's something that is really intriguing players and creates a learning curve and encourages people to ask other people as to how to do this and how to accomplish what they're accomplishing as far as their numbers go. So I'm glad they're watching it. It's a cool thing to have in for now. And as long as it doesn't get out of hand and feel like it's punishing players who don't know about it or who can't figure it out, then I think that's fine. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, I like stuff like this. Having these weird edge cases, or these little things you can wedge in on and get some kind of an advantage. Stuff like that. Like, yes, it adds the overall complexity to the game, but I think it's a good thing. I think there are certain things that you want to streamline, but also part of WoW's charm and what makes it interesting to people is that there's so much to learn about it. And so I think having stuff like this is cool. It shouldn't maybe be the way everything works. I don't know if we need layers like this to every single class or ability or whatever, but having these cases that exist and for players to take advantage of if they can, kind of master the style, I think is really cool. And if anything, maybe WoW hasn't leaned into that kind of stuff enough over the years, especially like in the post Mists of Pandaria years. Once the talent rework came in, it's like, okay, here's your play style, or maybe you have this slight variation on it, but this is what you do.
Right.
I think having those opportunities for players to just express a different set of skills or whatever with their character is really cool. So I'm glad to see it in there.
Yeah. Priest Shadow Form now increases all shadow damage done by 25%, up from 15, so you get yourself a 10% buff there on your damage. Rogues, your Saber Slash bleed now stacks up to 5 times. Your bleed now also increases the impact damage done by Sinister Strike and Saber Slash by 15% per stack for the rogue who applied the bleed, and Saber Slash now deals 3% of the rogue's attack power and damage per tick, down from 5. So little sort of switcheroo there of, I think overall you're probably doing more damage, but they just sort of kept it in line by bringing that down by 2% of the attack power damage that you're slapping people with. Shamans, your mental dexterity now only triggers from dealing damage with Storm Strike and Lava Lash, and is now lasts 30 seconds up from 10. And Burn now increases Flame Shock's damage by 100%, and the Flame Shock dot duration by 6 seconds, and it's caused it to hit up to 5 targets, was 3 targets. So in other words, this now allows you to hit a few more targets, gives you a little bit more AoE, which is also very helpful. Okay, let's chat a little bit about Mists of Pandaria, because we have this Mists of Pandaria WoW remix craziness event going on, and they put out a big blog post about it. And they started off just sort of covering what's going to be there for players to check out. We know that it's a limited time event where players get to re-experience the entirety of Mists of Pandaria expansion at an accelerated pace from level 10 through 70, and all loot has been completely overhauled and has powerful new effects, allowing players to shape their experience, power up, and power on. This includes the obviously accelerated leveling content, the level 10 to 70, the powerful items that they mentioned, quests and chests and creatures is where you can get all those things. You get customizable items allowing you to power up as you go, which are the different gem things that we talked about last week. The convert unwanted items into bronze. This is that like scrapper thing that Jason mentioned last week and covered in depth, where essentially you can break down unwanted items into a currency that you can use to purchase to upgrade items or to purchase cosmetics, which is very neat. You also get to keep and collect your collection of transmog and bring it over to the War Within. So all those characters shift over once all this is done. We know they added heritage armors for Drene and Troll races, as well as the heritage armor quest lines, but they will not be available for testing at PTR, so just keep that in mind. And 6 new hair colors for Kultirans. So, you know, if you want to really spice things up, there's a bunch more hair colors for you to check out there as well. All right, all the...
It's about time. I don't know how many hair colors Kultirans have, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously they had 6 fewer than they should have, so yeah. Congrats. And yeah, heritage armor I think is one of the coolest things they've put in the game over the years, so I got to remember to do these. I got to go back and check and make sure I did all the ones that are out and then be ready to do these, because you know, I think the storytelling they weave into those is awesome. I'm glad that they're not PTR testing it.
Yeah.
And the rewards are just super cool. You know, the Night Elf Heritage, I've barely taken off since it came in a little while ago. Which just really is, you know, they're typically like super archetypal looking. We saw a preview. Well, it was a data mine of the Draenei set, and so probably not final. It looked okay, but not really stunning. So, you know, that might have just been an artifact of, you know, it's data mining. It's not really what it's going to look like. Troll we haven't seen yet, but I feel like trolls have such a defined identity in World of Warcraft that hopefully they do something really cool with that set. So I'm excited to see them and definitely excited to play through those storylines.
Should be pretty interesting to see, and it's always great to see more heritage storylines come in because they're so well done all of the time. Okay, now keep in mind this Pandaria thing that's coming in that's on PTR is also just coming into the live game, right? This is going to be the thing where you can play alongside other players in the live game, except you're on the Pandaria track as far as how this stuff works. So some of these hotfixes are still, this is all still PTR that's coming in. We know that all Dragonflight quests that previously became available with Renown levels are now available to all characters at max level, regardless of Renown. Thank you. This is something that I think should have happened at the beginning of Season 4, but I'm still okay with this coming in when it did. This is how players are able to experience the storyline before the actual launch of the next expansion. I don't think it's reasonable to expect all these players to go to see the storylines and essentially have to grind Renown to be able to get there, to be able to see these things. I'm glad these are available ahead of time. That removes some of that pressure for players who have not finished their Renown but want to know the stories from seeing them, and it just avoids complaints. I don't think anyone cares. I don't think any player out there who did the Renown to get these is like, why are people able to get this? This is terrible, right? So yeah,
this probably should have cycled out a long time ago, honestly. Like once a new patch comes in, everything, I think all the other questing should open up, or maybe not even, like maybe not even wait that long. I don't think, like, I see some value in having quests roll out at certain times, like when there's, you know, I don't know, a .5 patch comes out or whatever, and then there's some new quest line that advances the story. But having stuff like in the game that you just can't get to yet because you don't have enough Renown, that I don't think that works too great. I don't maybe hopefully they don't do that too much in War Within.
Yeah.
Like, just play the storyline out, and separate it from that. Renown and storytelling should be different, like different like vectors in the game, in my opinion. Renown is the sort of reward for repeated investment in certain types of content, and then you get some type of reward that's specific to that faction. The story should just be the story, in my opinion. But we'll see. I mean, they did the same thing in Shadowlands. They carried it through to Dragonflight. We'll see if it persists.
It's certainly something I've complained about a few times on the show already, so I'm just glad to see it actually happening. That's just where I'm at. All right, the Sins of the Sister. A night elf has arrived, a Belameth, to bury her lost family from Teldrassil. This is a quest chain that you will get to experience and work your way through. I do not want to spoil any more than what I just said, because it sort of gives you some sort of framing for it. But yeah, it's certainly a quest line that I think a lot of people want to hop into and check out. That's going to go live with when the PTR goes live as well. The user interface and accessibility. We got ourselves some huge overhauls here to user interface and accessibility, which is great to see. We know that in Group Finder, there are now filter buttons that you can press for specific dungeon, your role available. None of your class already in the group. Tank or healer already in the group. Minimum Mythic Plus rating of the raid leader, and difficulty. So you can actually set any of these filters, which is wonderful. I love, as a healer, be able to go, I only want to see groups that need a healer. Click. Done. And just filters all the ones that have them. Already, previously, it would move all those runs to the bottom of the list. I was noticing that was happening before, but just filtering them out entirely is really nice. And then being, hey, you know what? I'm going to be doing a high-end key. I really want a leader of the group who's sort of done this high-end key before or done something similar, so I'm going to ask for a certain Mythic Plus rating of that leader, is another interesting thing to add in here for players. So I'm glad to see all these filters come in. I think it'll really help things out. They also made it so the role icons of each listing now show class color, so you can see the current group makeup at a glance, which I think is also a really nice change to that. So lots of Mythic Plus Group Finder sort of UI updates that I think are great to see come in with this. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the Group Finder came in, I forget, was it back in Legion? It was a great upgrade to what we had at the time. And especially with Keystones coming in, it was a need for sure, but it hasn't really seen a big refresh, and a lot of the rest of the UI and stuff has improved a lot. I think these changes look really great. I don't pug a lot, but once in a while it's like, okay, I need to pug into a specific dungeon for a specific reason, or I just need to get like one more dungeon done for the week and nobody else is around, and I only want a tank, right? So having like faster and more streamlined ways to find what I want sounds really great. I haven't messed around with this on PTR really to see like what it looks like or anything, and who knows how many groups are actually getting listed in there, but I'm glad it's getting a big pass. I think it's going to be great for people. I'm expecting people to really start coming back to the game a lot, and for War Within launch and everything, and just have like better ways for people to find groups is going to be a huge boon with a bunch more players in there.
Exactly. They also have now added a help tip tutorial. This is not something we see very often. They added a tutorial that will help teach players that they can search for keys within a specific range. For example, 6 to 10 or 7 to 7, whatever it is. It allows people to do that. I love seeing little tutorials being added to the game, because these are the type of things that just make a huge difference for players with these sorts of tools that you can use in the game to help, navigate things that you want to find. So I'm glad to see that happen. Groups that no longer fit your criteria are marked with a red background. For example, if you selected damage roll available and a listed group filled on damage dealers, it will then have a red background. Groups you are hard declined from are automatically marked in red and sorted to the bottom, which is also, I guess, a nice thing to do. I have been hard declined by groups before because they really wanted a shaman healer and not a resto druid. And it's nice to sort of be like, oh, okay, you guys are bottom of the list and I don't really see you anymore, and I'm not going to just reapply to your group again because I'm applying to 5 different Mythic Plus groups at a time, and I couldn't really tell if your version of the title that you're asking for a dungeon that is one letter off from this other person's version of a dungeon that they're asking for was one I applied to or the other one. So that helps that as well, which is nice. In the leader applicants panel, the applicant tooltip now shows the applicant's info in a more readable format. Their Mythic Plus rating, their highest key for the listed dungeon, and their highest key for all dungeons. So you actually get all that information right there. This is them being like, all right, we get it. People are running Raider.io add-ons. they're getting this information anyways. We might as well find a way to incorporate this into the game because so many players use it. So I understand putting that in. I also understand people's complaints of like, hey, I don't want people to be able to see this because I feel like I'll get rejected just based off of these stats. And it's like a catch-22 of how do I ever improve if I can never get into a dungeon that'll allow me to improve. So I understand both sides of that. I just acknowledge that Blizzard is putting in a tool that has been an add-on that people have used for years now. And so it kind of makes sense to a certain degree that they would start to incorporate that if they're seeing that the scene just requests it on a regular basis. All right.
Yeah, I mean, just putting in-game rating in, that was controversial when it came in Shadowlands, but I mean, granted, I'm speaking from a position of privilege in a bit of a way because I really don't pug very much. I mean, I'll pug in somebody, right? Like even last night, okay, let's grab a Ret Paladin. We're short of DPS. None of our friends are around. We need a battle res. Okay, so I'm in a position where I can just do that, and I'm not like at somebody's mercy as to whether or not I can get groups in. But just in-game rating coming in was very controversial, but I think it's worked out okay. It helps you kind of focus your gameplay time if increasing your rating is what you want to do, because it makes it clear like which dungeons you need to improve your rating in. And they also, they seeded some cool rewards throughout the process for hitting different milestones that don't necessarily require timing keys at certain ranks, which is good. I think, having more information is probably just better. And the thing is, the people that are going to decline you on your face because of some deficiency that they perceive that you have, they are using the Raider.io add-on, and they are looking you up in Raider.io.
Yep.
They are not going to not have this information, whether Blizzard puts it in the UI or not. But it should make it easier for people who maybe aren't necessarily focused on that element to round out groups or, find the specific comp they want for a group or whatever. So, I mean, I think it'll be fine. It may be a bit controversial coming in because, there's a segment of the player base who their main concern is not getting rejected from pugs. And, I could see where they might think that this would make it harder, but I think the people that would reject you on this basis are probably already doing that.
Yeah, probably. You're not wrong about that. It probably is the people who are already rejecting you are the ones who are using these things already. All right, advanced filters now only appear for max level characters, so you're not going to get too much cluttered UI when you're still leveling up. The filter options will now save between sessions, which means if there's certain filter options that you've set, when you log out, log back in, they will still be set. You don't have to set them again, which is nice. The declined applications will save between refreshes. So if you've been declined and you refresh, it will not show undeclined all of a sudden. They'll still be red and still move to the bottom. So keep that in mind. And recipes can now be tracked from the crafting order window. This is a new separate thing. Obviously, we're moving to a different part of the notes. Recipes can now be tracked from the crafting order window, as well as an option has been added to the auction house filters to show only current expansion items. We also have that the location of dragon riding races can now be toggled in the map filter. So if you don't want to see the dragon riding races anymore, you can toggle them on and off. And you can create or find a group participating in a scenario by clicking on the group finder icon on the scenario objective. So that's even better. That makes me super happy to see that happening. The number of helpful...
That's going to be nice too.
Really nice.
For doing like researchers under fire and stuff like that. If it pops up for outdoor world, because that's a scenario. It's added to be an outdoor scenario. But so for some of this last hurrah stuff, it might be really good, as well. If I'm not positive that it's compatible with that, but if it works with that, like that's gonna be awesome. Like right now, I highly recommend using the group finder for any public events that you're doing as you're doing last hurrahs and stuff, because you just get it. They fill up. You get a full group of people, and you'll get whatever you want out of the experience. But if it's like a one-click inside the thing that everybody's being directed towards versus having to go into the group finder and find the custom group for it, huge upgrade.
Yep. The amount of tutorials that a new character sees when they first log in have been reduced. So I assume this just means that they've sort of spread them out a little bit more so that people aren't getting too overwhelmed too early and having to just click on a ton of boxes when they first log in. That could be a little bit irritating for some folks. The mount tooltips will now show the category the mount belongs to as far as ground, aquatic, flying, or dragon riding. So you can actually tell what's a dragon riding mount, what's not, as they sort of do updates, which is the exciting thing for me, is if they add a sort feature, that'd be really nice for sorting things by those sorts of categories. That's something I would want. Because then, yeah, when a new patch comes out, you can actually sort by dragon riding and be like, what's the new stuff they've added? Because they're just adding them all the time. So it'd be neat to see what new dragon riding mounts or mounts they've converted over to dragon riding. When previewing an ensemble or arsenal in the dressing room, it will now show a list of items included in that bundle. Each item can be viewed independently by clicking on its name in the list. Solo shuffle scoreboards will now show the results of the match, victory, draw, or defeat in the title, which is nice. And then as far as the trading post goes, the mount categories for the ground, aquatic, flying, and dragon riding are now going to be shown in the trading post panel as well. And the level requirements for using that mount will now also be shown in the trading post panel as well. So folks can be a little bit clearer on those sorts of things. And man, that is our PTR notes that we got. We're still just a few weeks away or a couple weeks away from PTR sort of launching and going live with that Mists of Pandaria event. So you got a couple of weeks before this stuff kicks in, but I'm looking forward, especially to that Mythic Plus filter stuff. It's going to be very cool to see.
Yeah, there's 10.2.7 is kind of a sneaky good patch. They're putting a lot of nice quality of life upgrades in here and stuff. And yeah, patch is actually next week, right? For 10.2.7. I assume that that's going to be the new quest line and everything is going to launch with it that week. And so the stuff that we're talking about with the UI updates and also the heritage armor and all that stuff, that'll be in with weekly maintenance next week. And then the actual event kickoff for MOP Remix starts on the 16th. Which is the following Thursday. It's worldwide at, I think, 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's pretty cool. Everybody's going to be hopping in at the same time. Everybody have the same opportunity to get in there at the start. So, which is that's sort of the Thursday afternoon window is sort of when they do a lot of the classic stuff and some other events. So, it's going to be really nice. It's kind of weird. Kind of sad that this didn't all line up and it could have just been like one big maintenance day last week to do season roll and 10.2.7, but it just didn't work out that way. So we'll have some patch maintenance next week. We'll have all these nice upgrades, and then man, it's almost time to get into MOP Remix. I'm really looking forward to it, and this is going to be the last bit of story. This is going to be the story that bridges us with whatever questing they put in here into War Within pre-expansion event and the kickoff for that. So we are moving right along here.
Yeah. As far as Alpha goes, this is War Within Alpha. We'll move into those notes for development notes. The new zone, the Ringing Deeps, is now available for people to explore, as well as new dungeons with the Stone Vault and Dark Flame Cleft. And the new allied race, Earthen, is now in there for people to explore and check out. Man, Earthen, that's such a cool new thing for people to check out, man. I'm excited for checking that out. The character.
Yeah, I messed with the character creator a little bit. I didn't get in and play one, but they don't have like maybe as many customization options as you might think. Granted, it's very early alpha, so like who knows what's going to get added. But even with the stuff that's there, like they look incredible, and there's some really cool options for them. You can customize like the rocks sticking out of their skin and stuff. They're pretty cool, and their custom gear, like the Earthen themed gear, looks really nice too. So I don't know. When we were at BlizzCon, this wasn't the thing I was juiced up about. Like, we get to play as Earthen, but I do think they are going to be a really cool addition. So
I agree.
Yeah, I think when I have time to play Alpha, I'm going to make one and play that for a bit. Actually run around, not just sit in the character creation screen.
You should make one, because another one of these notes is specifically about with each phase of Alpha that comes out that they're sort of releasing with these big patch notes. They're encouraging players to make a new template character and avoid using their previous characters because they could be in a broken state. So after making a new template character, be sure you go to Quetzalcoatl, who's going to be there to be able to bump you up to level 73, which is much higher than we were previously. So level 73, which obviously max level is 75, where folks can essentially have this new character bumped up and caught up and explore all the new stuff. So yes, making yourself an Earthen is certainly on the list of things that you're able to do. The following hero talents are available for playtest in Public Alpha 2. We're in Phase 2 at the moment of it, and so there's Demon Hunter, the Felsguard, as well as Monk with Masters of Harmony, and Mages have got Sun Fury in there for you to check out and play around with those particular hero talents as well. And that is our wrap-up of the notes for Within Alpha. I'm excited about all this stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun as we get closer and closer and new phases come out.
For sure. I'm really bummed that I didn't have a chance to play this week because I wanted to check this stuff out. And how they've been doing alpha, they did Dragonflight the same way, is really smart because it's so laser focused. Like they really just want you in there with these few features and really checking them out. Which also means that if you miss a week, then you're kind of just behind on that stuff. So that, that's sort of a bummer. And for me, because I was just in Dragonflight so much, but, I think the accelerated pace and stuff of alpha is also really exciting. And just there's a new spotlight on something every single week. It's really cool. I loved what I played so far of Isle of Dorn and this, the starter experience and all that. Maybe, who knows, maybe tonight I'll get a chance to hop in there or something if my Keystone plan doesn't work out, and just get a little taste before the build rolls. I mean, I got a few days here before the build rolls over again, but retail is just always going to be priority. I only have so much time to play, but it's fun to watch the alpha kind of come together, especially the way the model they've done these last couple expansions where they're sort of just plugging in one puzzle piece at a time. And then eventually they kind of, turn the whole thing into a beta that sort of has the whole through line, and then off we go. But I think it's a neat way to do it, and hopefully it's effective. I mean, I think it must have worked out pretty well in Dragonflight if they kept it going, right? If they just used a very similar model in terms of getting feedback and looking at data. So yeah, it's cool, and they're adding. I would expect to build every like Thursday afternoon. So it's there's just gonna be new alpha stuff rolling out all the time.
All the time. All right, with that, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today I'm giving a shout out to Aliana, Sarajian, James, Kapawi, Max, Pinky, Shorel, and Rager. Thank you so much for all that you all give, as well as all of our patrons. Thank you so much for hopping in and supporting the show. Means a lot to us. If you're someone who wants to support the show as well, you can head on over to patreon.com/thestartingzone and check out all of our different tiers that are available there to support us. And just all the cash that we get from it goes towards paying for our hosting and supporting the show and all the technical needs and all the behind the scenes stuff. So we really appreciate it. And thank you very much to everyone who gives to keep the show going. So we just want to say thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons, past and present, for everything you've contributed to the show. It does make a huge difference, and it's the reason why we're able to keep the show going and keep all the archives online and all that stuff. It's because you help make it happen, so thank you for that.
Yeah. If you want to support the show another way, you can leave us a 5-star review over on your iTunes and Apple Podcasts. They really help out our show, boost us up those charts, more people find the show, all those sorts of things going on that are really good. So if you want to do that, go over to your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts, and leave us those 5 stars, and we'll read it here live on the show. We don't have one to read this week, which means if you leave one for us, we'll fit it in for our next episode. So please get out there and leave us those 5 stars. All right, that's going to wrap up episode 628 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at thestartingzone, or you can join our Discord server by going to thestartingzone.com/discord. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, some shirts or hats, or that no hats, shirts or mugs or stickers, that sort of thing, go over to TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone and check out all the sweet designs you can get over there and all that fun stuff. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
The best place to find me is always over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, and you can also find me over on Blue Sky at JLucas. You can also find me streaming WoW over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald. I did get some streams back up this past week, finally, for the first time in quite a long time. Well, I guess the alpha stream was first and then season 4 streams, but the channel's were offline for a good 3-4 months. I will probably be streaming raid stuff this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, possibly Sunday as well, 7:30 Eastern over there. You can also check out youtube.com/Shieldwald. I haven't done much with that channel of late. I'm afraid to try to co-stream to it because my ISP already hates me enough, so I try to stick to one. But that is over there as well if you want to check it out.
Trying to find me, my socials you can follow over on Twitter is at Spencer_Downey. I am twitch.tv/SpencerHD, as well as youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And I'm on that Blue Sky thing at SpencerHD as well. So trying to find me over there, you can. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening and jobs done.